in 1937, I think it was, 1937, Marjorie was sort of at a bit of a dead end, I think. I found a letter that she wrote later on to one of her friends describing how she was wandering around. She got in a little bit of interior decorating. She apparently sold sausages and all sorts of things. But eventually, her and a group of other women, including Mrs. Carpenter, Mrs. Bird, and one of the DuPont ladies, got together and devised this idea of opening a fashion house in downtown Wilmington, which they said Wilmington needed. So they put together this scheme, and they got some money from the bank as well, and opened on 11th and Tatnall. And the fashion house was called Bird Speakman, and it became the premier fashion house in downtown Wilmington, and in fact the only one in the area. And it became very popular and pretty successful initially. Started off with just mainly fashion dresses, but it did expand eventually into all sorts of smaller areas like lingerie, handbags, shoes, underwear, and things like that. Surprisingly enough, it was sort of what in modern parlance you'd call user-friendly, and everybody said how wonderful it was. But she blossomed tremendously and became a very important person in the area. One of her major triumphs, I think, was that she became part of the Eisenhower's Small Business Committee, which is amazing because there's a room full of men and there is Marjorie. It's the only woman. After the war, when it was possible to travel back to Europe, she became a strong advocate for helping the French get back on their feet. And when they started having fashion shows, she went over there and visited all the fashion houses. And initially, she bought some fashions to be sent back to her fashion house here, but turned out that the tariffs were absolutely crippling, and they couldn't do it in the end. The first time they had to do it, they sent them back through Mexico or something. So what she did was to look at the fashions and then take them ideas to New York, and the buyers there would set up with the shops who were making the fashions. She was a very keen writer as well. When she went to Paris at the end of the war, she sent back some articles relating to what was going on in Paris, not only just about the fashion, but what was life was like, and asking people to help the French people. And then eventually she started writing a regular article in the local paper. And she also broadcast quite regularly, and we have some material related to her regular broadcasts. Eventually, by 1967 or 68, I think it was, they eventually closed down. The bank was one of the reasons why they closed down. They wanted the site for that large DuPont building, which is on Delaware, and she couldn't budge them. So, in the meantime, though, she had, or between her and her daughter-in-law, they had opened other stores. They had one in Easton, Maryland, in one of the hotels. They had one in Rehoboth, originally on the boardwalk. And then they opened a children's store in Greenville, and that survived until 2003. I think that it has so many ramifications that she was a mover in several areas, some of them particularly in helping the underprivileged people after the end of the war in Europe, and she did a lot for them, and she held numerous fashion shows for charity in this area to make money for them. And as I say, she worked for the suffragette movement and for stopping prohibition, and she was also on the President's Committee for Small Businesses. So I think that, that she really was a powerful person in in the area, and she seemed to have been very successful in just about everything she did.